This is the Two-Tone Uncensored Podcast. Hosts Matt Necrone, Ryan Moreland, and Glenn Lotzenheiser talk everything Tennessee Titans. This show is made for the fans that bleed two-tone blue.
Hey, this is Kevin Dyson, former Tennessee Titan, and you're listening to Two-Tone Uncensored.
Welcome to Two-Tone Uncensored. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Moreland. With me, as always, Mel Kiper Jr.'s fourth cousin, Matt Necrone. How you doing, Matt?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
All right.
Also, coming in with a 9.75 40-yard dash, burning them, Glenn Lotzenheiser. How we doing, Glenn?
I pulled my hip flexor in the middle of that run. I'm going to be okay, but the doctor said no more than 3 or 4 times can I have sex a night right now.
Well.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I'm on restriction. I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to put a couple people to the side, I guess.
Plan B, Ryan. Plan B.
Plan B.
All right, we have a great show for you tonight. We're going to do the mailbag, as always, in the news. It's all combine-focused, obviously, right now. Just ended the NFL combine today, as the day that we're recording, Monday night. And then after that, we're bringing on a special guest. We're doing our next in-depth look at a college team. This week is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers and the players that they have coming out for the draft. So let's jump right into the mailbag, guys. Tyler Musson sends in the first one. And he's asking about Marshon Lattimore. After Lattimore's 4.36 40, do you think if we don't trade back that you can pencil him in right now as that 5th pick?
It's not just the 40 time. He looked awesome at everything he did today. It'd be really hard not to take him at that point, given our needs and the fact that he looks like he's really going to be a shutdown corner. My only real drawback is he's again hurt. He's saying it's not his hammy. If it's your hip flexor, whatever it is, stop getting hurt all the time. It makes it really hard to draft you that high.
Yeah, can't run fast when you're hurt. But I think, honestly, the 5 pick is going to be more – obviously it's going to be more valuable to trade. But I think that's going to be the main piece. If we really do want to trade back, we're going to get so much more for that 5 than the 18. And I think that if we were to do that and slide back 4 or 5, maybe 6 picks, I still think we can get a real quality player. And he may not be that guy, but I still think there's so many other options. So if we stay at 5, he may be that choice, but I would honestly rather trade that 5th back just a few picks and see what's there.
Without a trade back, I think you write it in pen at this point right now. Unless he does anything stupid. He's just, like Glenn said, a fantastic player. He's shown it on the field in tape. He showed it today in his workouts. It looked fantastic. Or not his workouts, in his 40 time. And that brings me to the next point is I wonder how much of it is, a hip flexor. We see guys all the time pull up and after they run a really good 40, especially if they were already considered a high pick, they run that 40 and then they don't work out. We see it constantly. So I wonder how much of it is an actual injury or him just playing the smart move here, because after running that 4.36, he has nothing left to show. He can't go out there. If he goes out there and has a fantastic, perfect day, all he's doing is reaffirming what everybody in NFL already thinks about this kid. If he goes out there and has a bad day, it hurts him. So he has nothing to gain by going out there and working out, going through the motions, doing all the drills. So I think it might be more of a business decision than an actual injury.
Yeah, I had the same kind of thought with it. It's just, when you've got an injury history, making that business decision still seems like a bad idea to me just because you're putting doubt in people's minds. Maybe they go and tell all these teams, look, he was just doing it because there was nothing else to prove. But I'd rather him just say, hey, look, I'm good. I'm going to stand on that. I'm walking away than faking an injury. I don't want any doubt at all in my mind that he is physically completely sound and ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, and it's not like he has a long track record of experience. I mean, he's only been around for 1 year as a starter. So, I mean, everything we see is what we can go by. And, I mean, there's really not that much other than he's real impressive. But, yeah, if you can't stay healthy, then you're no good to anybody.
Yeah, you guys bring up great points there. Moving on in the Combine, Josh Ebel asks, now that the Combine is over and John Ross ran the fastest 40 time ever at the Combine, does that increase our chances of taking someone like John Ross?
I don't think so. I think obviously that's freaky fast, but he's still right where he was before he ran that time. We knew the kid was fast. I would still, call me a homer, I don't care. I'd still take Mike Williams over any of the other receivers. He is not going to be a blazing speed kind of guy, but I'm well aware of that, and I'm still okay with what else he brings. John Ross will go in the first round for sure. I think he could go ahead of Corey Davis, but I still think Mike Williams goes first off the board. I'm not really sold on John Ross. It's crazy comparisons to what he and Brandon Cooks compare to each other on the field. And if we're talking about that from that kind of standpoint, I'm kind of torn between saving money, going the John Ross route, or getting what we already know Brandon Cooks is with that high salary. It's a debate we're going to have later on, I'm sure, but I would steer away from John Ross at this point right now.
I have two major problems with John Ross. Is one, I don't think unless we take him at 5, he'll be there at 18. So he's not a number 5 pick. So getting him instead of Cooks, I don't think that happens. I don't think it can happen. And I don't trust him. Incredible how fast he ran with 2 ACL tears in the past. It's just he's not Tyreek Hill. He's not as physically strong as Tyreek Hill is. He's a much smaller guy, more like Brandon Cooks. And taking nothing away from that amazing speed, is he going to be a receiver who's going to get open for us often enough that we can use properly in our offense? Because we'd have to take him really early or try to trade back and find that sweet spot to get him in there. So his time doesn't make me take him because there is a Brandon Cooks option out there. He is easily the fastest guy in the game right now. But he doesn't blow me away. Corey Davis is a much better route runner, is also sufficiently fast for me. And Mike Williams can go up and get the ball against anybody, which Ross can't possibly do. Mike Williams, I really want to see what he does on his pro day, how he runs, what kind of time he puts up there. I can't put Ross above either one of those top 2 guys, so he's still the number 3 guy to me.
I 100% agree with what you guys said. And to add one thing to it, is John Ross is fragile. We're looking at a guy that's had 2 ACL problems within his career already. He's small, he's quick, he's very fast. There's no denying that, but he's frail. He has a fragile frame, and I don't think that I don't want to draft another Deshaun Jackson. And if you look at this, and everybody gets all up in arms and gets so excited when someone breaks these records. But look at the top 10 fastest guys to ever run at the Combine. Take out Chris Johnson and show me who you have left. Chris Johnson is not the rule. He is the exception that proves the rule, if you will. And nobody else on that list has been above mediocre for their career.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a question of, blazing speed, but how do you apply it? Tyreek Hill has shown that he can do a lot of different things really well, and, we saw with Chris Johnson. If you're incredibly fast and the team can get you into space, it's a touchdown. And I'm not saying I don't want Ross. I want that kind of speed. I want that special player that we can put in there and just scare the shit out of the other team. Wherever Ross goes, everybody's going to have an eyeball on him because you just can't let that guy get loose. That doesn't mean that some 260-pound linebacker is not going to manage to line up on him and blow him into pieces. He could play one game and just be crippled for the rest of his life. There's no telling how that's going to work out for him. But for where we would have to draft him, I don't think he's going to be there for us to pick. So his 40 time doesn't push him into a point where I take him that high.
Yeah, I think the only way I'd be comfortable taking him in the first round is if we did trade back and got crazy value for the trade and then ended up taking him with the whatever 10th, 11th pick.
See, I wouldn't even with the 40 time, I'm not comfortable taking him that high. If he slipped to 18, then I would start to think about it, but it would still depend on who's there. If O.J. Howard's still there, I'd rather have Howard. There's a lot of guys that if they're still there, I'd rather have than John Ross. If we were still at 18 and, a lot of those guys were off the board, then yeah, if we traded back into the late first round and he somehow managed back there, then absolutely take him. But the speed alone is not enough in my eyes, to push him above 20, 18, 17, around that area. I know he'll probably go before then, but in my eyes, it's not worth the value that's there.
Yeah, someone's after what CJ did. Someone's always going to take a chance on incredible speed. If you don't have personality issues like Tyreek Hill, you're going to get drafted. It's going to be fairly early, but that kind of speed, I would still be scared to put him back there returning kicks, because that's going to be a bunch of really hard full speed impacts that I don't think he'll survive. So Tyreek Hill you can return kicks with because he's a more solid individual as far as just physical build. So, Ross is going to get drafted. It's going to be probably too high if he ends up having the injury history. And then we could all be wrong, and, the Colts could draft him or somebody, and then we just have to watch him just blaze past us, 2 times a season.
I did see where someone said Al Davis came back from the dead to draft John Ross.
He would. He's exactly his type of player. He's a little short for Al Davis, but
yeah,
Al Davis drafts speed.
He's going to go earlier than he should, and I'm okay with it as long as it's not to us. But I think that, we took Chris Johnson at 24 in 2008. I could see him going around then, but I really think somebody is going to take a chance on him a little too early, and better off, in my opinion. I would rather not be the team to take a chance on him.
All right, guys, let's move on from John Ross here. Joe Markin asks, do you think the actions of Reuben Foster affected his status, and do you think his apology helped at all? And what do you think this will end up, the total package will end up affecting his draft status?
No, not at all. I think it was a bad look for him. I don't think it affects his draft status any, because everybody knows what kind of player he is on the field. And he didn't punch anybody. He didn't bite somebody's face. He's still going to have a pro day. He's still going to get drafted right about where he was. Unless somebody's actually looking at him and McMillan and Cunningham and trying to pick between the three of them, and then they just say, okay, well, Cunningham didn't bite somebody's face, so I'm going to make him the guy ahead of him. That's about what it comes down to.
Bite somebody's face.
Bite somebody's face. He went fucking zombie or something on him. Did some bath salts right before the combine.
Right. No, I don't know. I think it did affect it, but not to the point where you're going to pick another guy over him. I think it might, teams that are looking at him, 3 or 4 overall, anywhere in the top 10. I think he may slide back a few picks. I think a few teams will pass on him. He is a dirty player. I mean, he's a beast on the field, but when, national title game, he had a few cheap shots that I noticed. That's not saying I don't want him on the team, because I do. He's a very good player. But I do think a few teams will pass on him for the character issues he has.
Yeah, I agree. I think you put it really well there, Matt. Exactly what I was going to say is I think he slips a few spots because of this. I don't think you see a big movement, but maybe 5 total. That he would have dropped. 5 from where he would have been spots to where he will end up being. He's still a monster of a player, and as the apology means nothing, because you can never know if it's sincere or not, because everybody just immediately apologizes as soon as they realize what they did is going to give them negative publicity. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or whatever public kind of figure you are. So the apology means nothing. It's just expected. But I think it drops him a little bit, because he'd made an idiot move, and the one time that you really cannot afford to make an idiot move of any kind. It'll drop him. It'll take him off of a few teams' boards, but he'll still end up going relatively early, because he is a fantastic football player.
Yeah, if anything, I would drop him back just because he pulled the "Do you know who I am?"
Oh, what
Like,
a
you're at the
douchey
fucking
thing.
combine. Of course I know who the fuck you are.
That is the douchiest thing I think a human being can say. Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? Like, yeah, you're the guy who's leaving the fucking combine.
That being said, if this podcast ever goes gangbusters, I will use that line every day of my life.
There you go. Do you know who I am? Like, yeah, you're the same guy who was peeing on the sidewalk yesterday. Get out of here, Moreland.
Hell yeah, peeing on sidewalks everywhere, all over Nashville. We'll move on, though, from Reuben Foster. Reg Bannock asks, if we're setting at 5 and there has been no safeties or corners taken at that point, who are you taking with the 5th pick, assuming we're not trading back?
That's tough. For me, I mean, we need corner most, and I guess Lattimore is probably my answer, but I think I like both safeties a little bit more than I like Lattimore. It's just not as extreme of a need for us. I think Malik Hooker is probably going to be, maybe not in his first rookie year, but overall, I think he'll probably be the best safety coming out this year. With that being said, Jamal Adams is probably going to be very close. I think they're both going to have great careers, don't get me wrong. But just the style that Malik Hooker plays, I think he's going to be something special. To pair him up with Byard, I think would be nasty. But for right now, not only do we need to draft a first-round corner, we're going to need another corner, whether it be in free agency or the draft or even both. So, I mean, corner is such a strong need for us. I guess my answer has to be Lattimore, but I like both of those safeties a lot.
I do, too. I think all three of these players are can't miss, is barring injuries. That's the question for everybody but Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams is probably the safest guy to pick because he doesn't have a bad injury history like that. But I still think I have to go Lattimore. I mean, a 6'1" corner with that kind of speed, with that kind of tape, it just he's got everything you need at a position that we desperately need. I mean, we haven't had a star corner here in a long time. The closest thing to it is Pac-Man Jones, and he spent more time in jail than he did on the field first that year. So I mean, Hooker and Adams, either one, beautiful. I will not complain at all what we do, but I would take the corner if it was me making that call.
Yeah, I agree. It'd have to be Lattimore at this point. Based off of need, it's probably the main thing, and value. Right now in our league, corners are more valuable than safeties are. And, that has a lot to do with it. But if you really think about it, it might be a better play to go safety just because of how deep corner is. You can still get, you'll still get a fantastic corner at 18. You'll still get a really solid corner in the 3rd round, as deep as this class is. So it might be the smart play to try to go safety and then corner. But for me, if I'm making the call, I'd go with Marshawn Lattimore there just because of how talented the kid is. And at 5, you're not going to get another chance at him after that. He's not going very far past 5 if you don't take him there. But let's move on here to the last question in the mailbag. Colby Cooper asks, do you see Cameron Sutton slipping into the 3rd round because of how deep this draft class is at cornerback?
I think he could. I think he's better than a 3rd round pick. But if that were the case, I think we'd be lucky to snag him in the 3rd because he could also be our return man if we do get him. So if he falls to the 3rd, could he fall to the 3rd? Yeah, I think he could just because of the depth of what's coming out. But to be fair, I don't think he is, the typical 3rd rounder.
Yeah, I mean, he's better than your normal 3rd rounders, but that's the deal with this draft. There's so many, good corners. There's only, Lattimore, Sidney Jones, Humphreys. Those are like the 3 premier guys. And then you've got your next layer down from there. And we saw, some of those speed times. Tease Tabor, he's going to have to be a safety. He can't be a corner. He's just not fast enough. So he's going to drop down. And you're going to see some of the people that are rated above Sutton kind of fall off. A lot of it will be because of 40 times or, this or that. So if he's in the 3rd round, that's 2nd round value for sure. So it's a great pick for us. I don't know that he'll be there, but he could be. I would definitely take him.
Yeah, I definitely think he could slide. Obviously a very talented football player, but he has the injury history with the ankle, I believe it was, fractured ankle. So is gonna, something that's gonna weigh on teams' minds. I think you could see him slide that far. I don't know if I'd put money on it right now because he's a talented guy, and just like Glenn said, you're gonna see some guys slip out of his way and move him up on the list of corners. But it is a really deep draft at corner, and there's how many teams don't need a corner, and then the teams that reach early are not going to need a guy later on. So it opens up for those guys to start sliding back to where you're getting really talented guys in the third and fourth round at cornerback. So I definitely think it's a possibility. It'd be awesome to be able to grab a guy of his talent and his skill level in the third round, especially at a position that is obviously our most pressing need. That's all we have for the mailbag, though, this week. Thanks to everybody who submitted. Every week, if you want to get your question on the mailbag, you can find it on our Facebook page at Two Tone Podcast, or just search for Two Tone Uncensored. We always put them on there. Or if you're a member of the Tennessee Titans Uncensored Facebook fan page, we always put it on there, too. And that's where we get all of our questions from. So if you have been trying to get your question in, I had some people message me about it. That's how you do it. Just go to one of those two places on Facebook, and you'll see a post we put up each week. Just comment your question there. We pick the best ones every week and answer them on the show. But let's get out of the mailbag, guys. Let's get into the news here, and it's mostly Combine talk. But before we get into the Combine, real quick, let's talk about Brandon Cooks. Probably the biggest news for Tennessee. Everybody's saying right now the Titans are the front runner to get the wide receiver out of New Orleans. The prospect of landing Cooks is looking more and more likely as the days roll on. Tomorrow, obviously recording this Monday night, tomorrow, Tuesday, is when teams are officially allowed to start talking to players. Thursday is when free agency officially opens up. So we're going to get more news on this in the coming days if we don't see him signed already by then. So, guys, just going through, first, what do you think about this? We haven't really talked about Cooks on the show yet. What do you think about the prospect of getting him, and what do you think we're going to have to give up in order to get a player of his caliber?
It's more what I don't want to give up. I'm happy to swap like the 1st for the 12th. I'd be okay with that. You know what you're getting. You're getting a blazingly fast receiver who's shown he can be productive, who can throw up 1,000-yard seasons. He has had Drew Brees throwing in the ball. He's had issues with not getting the ball enough because he wants the ball. We all know receivers like that. The best ones want it every time because they're always open, as far as they're concerned. He's not tall. He's definitely the John Ross comparison. The price is probably right for him. And if you can trade the 1st for the 12th and make any other moves later on in the draft somewhere with either with the Saints or through somebody else, he's definitely good value. He's somebody that I feel need on this team. We need somebody who can just blast down the field. Somebody who makes defenses pay attention to him, even when he's just being used as a decoy. When you have really good running backs, a good tight end, and somebody like that on the team, you can get an awful lot done on offense. That said, when I was going back and researching on him, it amused me that I found a NFL scout actually wrote down lacks elite blazing speed to run by NFL corners and safeties. Who the fuck were they watching? It's like that's his holy move. Is he's really, really fast. He's not a great punt returner. He's not a great kick returner. He's not a good blocker. But he's really, really fast. And so somebody thought he wasn't fast enough to run past people in the NFL was crazy to me.
Yeah, I honestly think he'd be a great fit on the team. I have questions about his attitude because obviously the Saints are shopping him for a reason. I don't know if the whole, I want the ball is kind of blown out of proportion a little bit, because if you look back at his games, I don't have it in front of me, but I do remember from a fantasy standpoint, this guy would have 6 catches, $140, 2 touchdowns one game, and then have a goose egg the next. So I mean, from a receiving standpoint, that's kind of frustrating when you can be the guy, and then you don't even get a catch or a reception the very next game. So I mean, he has a valid point if that's the only gripe he has. But again, like Glenn said, it's not really how would he fit here. It's what do we have to give up to get him. If it's a swap for the 11th pick, that's fine. To give up the 18th pick, that's kind of like what I was getting into earlier with would I rather have him or John Ross. I'd probably rather have him, but if John Ross is somewhat comparable, translating to NFL play, I think that, it's obviously a smarter deal to draft your own player as opposed to spend the money on a guy that's already in the league. Now he has a special rookie contract to where the 5th year is not the option. I'm not sure how it works exactly. Maybe Ryan, I'm not sure. But it is actually a 4-year deal. So he only really has one more year on this rookie deal. If we can swap picks, I'm all about it. If there's some sort of anything but giving up one of our first-round picks, I'd be all about, getting him on the team. But to just straight up give up the 18th pick, I don't think I'd do it.
I've seen the rumor flying around about the swapping of picks, and I just think it's a little bit insane. I just it would be awesome. I just definitely don't think the Saints are going to give him up for that. I think that was a pipe dream from the start when I first saw it. That's my first reaction, and I still think the same way. I just don't think they're going to give up a player that has been their best wide receiver for a couple years now just to swap and get a pick, 6 spots earlier in the first round. I think we're going to have to give up the 18th if we want him, or possibly, maybe swap the 18th for a second round pick. Could be a possibility. I don't really know how I feel about that one. That would probably be the one that I might be okay with dropping back into the second round, for getting rid of the 18th for a guy like Cooks. But I just feel like for where we're sitting right now for the Titans, I think there's better moves to be made in order to get someone just as, or maybe even more talented and at wide receiver that could make a bigger difference for our team. Cooks is blazingly fast. He can do a lot stretching the field for you. But we're still going to be a run-first team with a quarterback that has an improving arm strength, but not great arm strength. So I think I'd rather see a guy with size, with a big body that can do more possession kind of than a guy that can burn down the field, because I think we'd use him more. He'd be more useful in our system. That's why I'd like to get a guy, and I know Matt's going to shed a tear when I say this. I'd love to get a guy like Mike Williams out of Clemson, a big-bodied guy, perfect possession receiver who also has the ability to break big plays. With that being said, though, I think you're going to have to give up the 18th or drop back into the second round in order to get him. I don't think the swap is realistic. I don't think that the Saints are going to give it up for that. If they do, it'd be awesome. I mean, that would be an amazing move. You absolutely pull the trigger on that as fast as possible before New Orleans has enough time to think about how dumb they're being. But I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, and you got to remember, New Orleans is in the driver's seat in this negotiation, no matter who they deal him to. So, I mean, it's probably – I mean, you got to realize Cooks, although I'd rather have, like you just said, I'd rather have Mike Williams than Cooks. But as of right now for production, Cooks is better than any receiver coming out. So there's got to be more than just give up our 18th pick. Like there's got to be something more for us to be able to do that. I'd like to have him, but again, man, we're in such a good position. I don't want to screw it up.
Keep this in mind too. The Patriots offered their first round pick for Cooks, and the Saints turned it down already.
Well, it's a lot later.
Yeah, I mean it's a 32nd, but if you're thinking about swapping 6 spots or just having an extra first round pick. The value of having just, that what it basically is an early second round pick is better than just swapping and moving up 6 spots. The value is much more there. So that's why I really don't think that's going to happen. And I think we're going to have to give up the 18, possibly maybe talk them into throwing a later round pick in there. Even the second round, I still think is a stretch. In order to get him, we're going to have to pay. Like Matt said, they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, he won't come cheap. Honestly, if you ask me if I want Cooks or if I'd rather have somebody like O.J. Howard, I think I'd probably take O.J. Howard just because of what this team does and how we want to go about doing it. I think having that kind of speed up the middle of the field would be just as valuable for what we do as having Cooks on the outside edge. Taking nothing away from Cooks. He's an amazing player, and if you could trade 5 for 11, awesome. Okay, that's great. And then you can still draft O.J. Howard. But giving up that other first-round pick makes you a lot less comfortable trading that first pick away. So if John Robinson were to trade the 18th for Cook, then what's he going to do with that number 5 pick? Because he's probably going to have to trade it back to get some more draft capital. He's probably going to be looking for that first and second round pick at that point. And then we're all a lot less jazzed about what's going on with our first round.
Yeah, and the good thing about having John Robinson, I don't think he's in love with Cook, so I don't think he's going to do anything outrageous to try to get him. But you never know.
See him overpaying.
No, I don't think he will, but it's basically a wait-and-see game. I don't think a deal is going to be made before the draft, so we'll see.
And no matter what, it won't be made until the 9th, so we have plenty of time to wait.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For the rest of the news, guys, it's just, the Combine just finished. Is there any guys that really stood out to you, guys, that you wanted to talk about, or some things that you noticed that you wanted to bring up? First, I'll start us off. It's just speed. It seemed like this year, especially compared to last year, the tight ends were faster, the corners were faster, the wide receivers were faster. It seemed like every position got faster this year than it was last year. Definitely something impressive to see. There's some, Lattimore putting up that 4.36 was unbelievable. I thought he was going to be a higher end 4.4 guy, like a 4.48, 4.47. And definitely, way faster than that. You saw guys like O.J. Howard at, 253 pounds, I believe, running a 4.51, which is, you just wonder if that's actually humanly possible. If I had to blink my eyes and rub them a couple times to make sure I wasn't dreaming when I saw that. Just fantastic numbers put up by a lot of guys in the 40 time was definitely something that I noticed.
Yeah, definitely. I was commenting early on that the thing I was looking forward to the most was just seeing a draft class of players who can actually run. Last year drove me insane. Last year was a year where you had to be drafting a lot of guys in the on the lines, the front seven on the defense, because there was no speed on the back end last year. There was no speed at wide receiver. It was a very lackluster group last year. And this year, you got a bunch of guys who are tall, who are fast, who are just dynamic players. So it's a really good year for us to have a couple of first-round picks and for us to be looking for a playmaker, a wide receiver, really good corners, safety. But a guy that I don't know that we target, but I was really impressed with today was Obi Melifonwu. He made a lot of money today. Yeah. If you're 6'4", you run a 4.4 40, a 44-inch vertical, and then a 14.1 inch or something like that, or a 12. What was his horizontal?
The broad jump?
Wasn't it like 11.9?
It's like 11.9. He almost out.
Yeah, they only go to 12 feet, and that's like the last marker. So he was almost off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, his measurables are insane. He's not a bad player. He's a little bit raw at everything he does, when he's on the football field. His footwork needs some work. He's not the greatest guy at turning and running with people. But you're not going to throw over the top of a safety like that. You just stick him on a tight end all day long and just deny them the ball. I was really impressed with him. I don't see him as a guy the Titans target, but man, he was an impressive guy. Today he was someone I really enjoyed watching. Just seeing him go out there and do the workouts because he looked really good at it. Some of the other guys out there that really impressed. We're going to talk about him, tonight. Like Dobbs, I thought he did pretty good for himself. He moved himself up probably a full round just from the way it looked like he was, performing out there. Other guys didn't impress me, like, Tease Tabor. He fell off. Quincy Wilson, who I liked better than Tabor, his 40 time didn't do anything for me. But a guy like Adoree Jackson, he's a very physically dynamic player. He's made some good plays in college. He's still a little bit raw, but you can bring him in day one as your kick returner. He can catch the ball well enough on offense that you could, put some packages in there for him there, all while turning him into a superstar corner at some point. I loved having all that speed running around out there. I wish I was able to just sit and watch more of the combine this year than I was able to. I got a lot of tape. I want to go back and look and just go, see some of these numbers, compare the combine times and what they did against their college film, and just see what actually matches up.
Yeah, I won't repeat any of what you said. The only thing I'll add to that, maybe Leonard Fournette's 40 time kind of surprised me, a 4.51. He's right there with Dalvin Cook. So his vertical wasn't too impressive, but I think overall Leonard Fournette helped himself with that 40 time.
That's what made O.J. Howard so impressive. I talked about it earlier. Everybody was talking about, like, wow, man, after Leonard Fournette ran, he was like, wow, that 4.51, impressive for a big guy like him. And then O.J. Howard comes out and does it at 30-plus pounds more than Fournette. That really impressed me. That, I think, is one of the most impressive 40 times that I saw O.J. Howard. And he had a great workout, too. The guy that you mentioned, Adoree Jackson, had a great day-to-day working out. But you knew he was going to. He's just a physical specimen, really great, dynamic player that can do a lot for you. But at cornerback, it's going to take him a while to get to the point where he's NFL ready. But he can do a lot for you in the return game until he's ready to take over that corner spot, as Glenn was saying. One guy, the quarterback, and I know that we're not in the market for a quarterback, but Peterman from Pittsburgh, I think he did himself a lot of favors. He reminded me a lot of Marcus coming out. He doesn't have the dynamic ability or the running ability, the athleticism, but he's a great short passer. You go back and watch this tape at those short to mid routes. He was right on the money each time. The ball was coming out with the cuts. I mean, he was really threw a lot of great footballs. But then it got to the deep part, and he was dead on accurate, right on the line. But all of them, every single pass, wide receiver had to slow down to grab it. It's just another guy that's a great accuracy, but not the biggest arm in the world for sure. He impressed me. Dobbs, as you mentioned, Webb from Cal, he had a really good workout as well. Some of these quarterbacks that are going to be going in the middle of the rounds really showing that there's not that big of a gap between them and the bigger names of this draft class. And then one more thing that I noticed was obviously Myles Garrett. It's a guy that we won't be in the market for unless something happens. Maybe he gets his own face mask bong. But I mean, the kid had a fantastic workout. He's been the number one pick for months now, and he just reaffirmed that. His workout, I believe it was yesterday. Jumped out of the roof, had an amazing. Everybody's been posting the picture of his vertical compared to Odell Beckham Jr.'s because he was quite higher than what OBJ's was when he came out of college. He had just a fantastic workout, really reaffirming what everybody thought in him or believed that they were seeing in him. Just how deep this cornerback class is. I think, it's something that's been overstated, obviously, but I mean, there were some guys working out that, I was noticing today. Xavier Woods had himself a really good day in the workouts. He looked really fluid in his movements. A lot of really solid corners in this draft, which is great for us because it's definitely a position of need. And I think if we take one early, I don't think it's going to be the only one we take. I think we still get a guy later in the rounds. I think we can still get a guy in those middle rounds at 3, 4, 5 that can come in and compete for a job day one. There's a lot of talent in here. Rasul Douglas is a guy of obviously being a homer. The only one I was telling Matt about it earlier was Jordan Lewis. Is a guy that early on was projected to be a first rounder and then, didn't quite have the season that everybody expected him to. And every time I watch tape on him or I watch his workouts, I get less and less impressed by the kid. I just don't see what everybody else is seeing in Jordan Lewis out of Michigan. But those were my takeaways from the combine today.
Yeah, you know what? I would totally Photoshop picture or work a video of Myles Garrett smoking a bong if that would get him to 5. I'm fine with that.
Well, all right, get to work. That's what we need, Glenn.
We need some hookers, and we need some blow, and we got to go make a bad video. Then we'll just tell John Robinson that we set this up. It didn't actually happen this way.
One of the Facebook group crackheads suggested that he's like, why don't we trade our 5th and 18th to get number 1 and take Myles Garrett? We're like, no. Okay.
It's like, as awesome as that would be, this isn't Madden. This has real consequences in the real world.
That would not be awesome. I'd be so pissed.
No doubt. Having him on the team would be awesome.
Yeah,
What it would cost to get him compared to what we need to do with our defense, nah.
Listen, as much potential as he has, he's not turning Cleveland around. I hate to tell anybody that, but
he's aware of that. That's why he was begging Dallas to trade up and get him.
True.
Yeah, I really don't want to waste 2 draft picks. What if Myles Garrett doesn't turn out and you traded both first-rounders for him? You traded 2 first-rounders. So you took a guy for 2 first-round draft picks. That'd be the biggest bust of all time. But that's about all we have for the first half of the show. We're going to head into a quick commercial break. When we come back, as promised, Sean Coleman, friend of the show, is coming on to talk about his Tennessee Volunteers and what we should be looking in the draft prospects that are coming out of Tennessee. So we'll be right back.
Time to pay the bills. Some quick ads and we'll get right back to the show.
Hey Titans fans, you've probably heard us talk about the group page several times on this show, and I'm sure you're wondering what we're talking about.
Tennessee Titans Uncensored is a Facebook group page that was built by Titans fans for Titans fans and was founded by our very own Matt Necrone.
If you're a Titans fan that's looking to talk about the latest Titan news, this is where you need to be.
And you can help me shit talk the crackheads.
Because nobody likes crackheads.
That is Tennessee Titans Uncensored on Facebook. Tighten up. Hey guys, you've heard us talk about Hang 10 Apparel before on the show, and if you haven't checked them out, then you're truly missing out.
Hang 10 is the one place to find unique Titans gear that you will not find anywhere else.
Whether it's a Maragota hoodie, a Mahalo at Your Boy t-shirt, or Mike Keith's Music City Miracle Call on a sweater. There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle! The only place to find it is Hang 10.
Just go to hangtn.com to find all this great gear.
And while you're there, don't forget to use our promo code TWOTONE to get 10% off any purchase.
That's hangtn.com, the official Titan shop of Two Tone Uncensored.
Tighten up.
Hey Titans fans, it's Ryan from the show. We've been telling you about this first round mock draft that's taking place in the Facebook group Tennessee Titans Uncensored. This is the last update that you're going to get from us about this competition because the deadline is March 10th. If you want to compete, all you have to do is go to Tennessee Titans Uncensored on Facebook and find the first round NFL mock draft pool. The idea is simple. You make a mock draft. The more accurate you are, the more points you're going to receive. The more points you're going to receive, the more likely it is you finish in the top 10, and everyone who finishes in the top 10 will receive a prize. The prizes include a Marcus Mariota rookie card, Chris Johnson autographed rookie card, a Jack Conklin autographed rookie card. There's a lot of really great stuff to win here. If you're not already in the competition, you must act fast. Again, the deadline is March 10th at 11:59 p.m. All you got to do is go to Tennessee Titans Uncensored on Facebook, find the post about the mock draft pool, and comment your name there, and you will be entered into the competition. After that, you need to do your research, start getting your mock draft together. You have until 30 minutes before the draft starts to send your final copy of your mock draft. Good luck to everybody out there. Tighten up.
You're listening to Two Tone Uncensored, brought to you by Podbean.
Hey, this is Bo Scaife. You listening to Two-Tone Uncensored. Tighten up.
All right, we're back from that commercial break. As promised, we're sitting here with Sean Coleman, diehard Tennessee Volunteers fan. He's going to take us through all of the draft prospects coming out of Tennessee this year. How are you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing well. Thank y'all for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming on. Glad
to have you, man.
All right, Sean, we're going to start off here with Derek Barnett, your guys' defensive end, standing at 6'3", 265. Had a pretty fantastic workout at the Combine, looked pretty good. And, you know, all SEC pick, a guy was a first-team All-American by most people's standards. Where do you think, as of right now, we're going to see Barnett come off of the board?
To be honest, his draft stock has kind of dropped over the past 2 months, and it's hard to believe. You know, the opinion of Barnett has not changed, but when you start to look at the post film, the postseason combines and, you know, when you start looking at people's athleticism, that's when you start to see the risers. Barnett, unfortunately, in that case, is a faller, in my opinion. I think that he's mid to late first round. Barnett is someone that is not as adjustable to a lot of schemes as you may like as other prospects like Garrett Williams and things like that. And, you know, I'm sure we'll discuss that more in a second. But I really think mid to late first round is his opportunity. I think that number 9 at the Panthers, I believe they have number 9, a lot of the 4-3 defensive schemes that put a lot of emphasis on the defensive ends, the Panthers, the Giants, the Eagles. I really think that, you know, in that mid first round, so, you know, kind of in the teens and early 20s, I think that's where Barnett will fall.
Do you think, you know, you talked about him being in a 4-3. Do you think his size, being at 265, do you think that'll limit him from playing in, you know, a 3-4 system?
Correct. And the reason that I say that more than anything is because athleticism is the one thing that he's average at. Derek Barnett, you know, when you look at the highlight films, when you look at a Myles Garrett, when you look at a Jadeveon Clowney, when you look at these freak defensive ends, I mean, defensive ends, just like tight ends, are some of the most beautiful athletes to watch because of the fact that it's like superhuman, some of the things that they can do. That's not Barnett's game. Barnett, instead of out-athleting everybody, he out-techniqued everybody. The smarts, the power, the hand use, the ability to make moves, the strategy of it. That is Barnett's game, and he is more apt to be successful at that based off his body size in a 4-3 defense where he can get the leverage coming up versus standing up going into an offensive lineman. In the NFL, you know, power and things such as that's not going to have as big of a impact as it did in college because simply everybody's an athlete. Everybody's big. Everybody's strong. So the way that Barnett was able to overpower people in the college game, yeah, it was great to see, and it shows up well on tape, but it's going to be his smarts and his technique, I think, that's going to allow for him to have success in the NFL game. The swim moves, the ability to be able to play the run, the ability to cut off the angles for the running backs, as well as being able to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. His game just comes better out of the stance in the 4-3 defenses than it does the 3-4 due to a lack of quickness and also his strength and technique.
That said, you know, if he lines up on a tight end, the tight end's going to have an awful hard time getting off the block against him. Like you said, his hand usage is really good. He puts a hit on the tight end coming out of his block. He would be a good guy for changing the tight end's route right off the bat, even in a 3-4, just as an outside rusher. The thing I was impressed by him in this combine was his 3-cone drill. He's a top performer in that. It showed a lot of change of direction and more lateral agility than I expected to see from him. He kind of surprised me in that. His other stats, like you said, they don't jump out at you. But I think he could be a 3-4 guy if they move him to outside linebacker, let him play more of the Nick Perry role up in Green Bay. Just, you know, he's as a pass rusher, as a sub-package guy who comes in there just as a physical presence, and like you said, with great technique that he's already got. So he could come in and play in a 3-4. I don't know that that's his choice spot.
And I really think, you know, we get a good example of it out of Kevin Dodd for the Titans right now. You know, Kevin Dodd is a 6'5", 275-pound defensive end. I know that he stood up a little bit at Clemson, but to me, he's more of a 4-3 guy who could potentially use power to be able to get past the tackle. But no, you bring up a great point. You know, the one pro comparison that I kind of see is the Whitney Merciless, Nick Perry type guys. You know, those big body guys who win with technique and power, but also have the ability and the agility to be able to do it in coverage. I mean, if you look at the game tape of Barnett at Tennessee, it was unbelievable. I was just as impressed from his ability to get to the quarterback as I was with his ability to cover. I mean, downfield, there were 2 or 3 plays last year where he had deflections. I mean, his first 2 years in Tennessee, he had 1 pass deflection. Last year, he had 5. He also has the unique ability to be able to read the screen, and whenever the quarterback is about to dump it off to the running back, there were several plays last year where he was able to block it. The quarterback tucked the ball back in, and we wound up getting a sack or a tackle for loss. So his ability to read the play schemes and know on an instant, okay, this is a screen, this is going to be a draw, this is a quarterback sneak, or this is a quarterback run. It's unbelievable, his recognition skills, just as well as it is his ability to get past the blocker. So I do agree with you that you are correct. In the 3-4 stand-up opportunity, he would be able, with his recognition skills, to still make a difference, even though I think he's better for the 4-3.
Next guy I wanted to talk to you about is Alvin Kamara at running back, and he is interesting to say the least. A guy that went to Alabama, has a history of getting into trouble. Obviously, transfers to Tennessee. Was very productive as a volunteer. How much do you think his off the field issues that he had, especially in that time when he was transferring, will affect or should affect his draft status?
To be honest with you, I think 2 years coming back, the 2 years that he was at Tennessee, the one thing that I've seen scouts say is that, yes, he did have, his downfalls. He was a young man. We've seen that is impacting, it seems like, a lot more prospects this year. I guess that's from the heightened awareness in the NFL in general. But over the past 2 years, there have been nothing but positive things about Kamara. His work ethic, his team leadership. I know that he was made a captain, after, 1 year here from junior college. A lot of the players really, really went to him. As a matter of fact, Kamara was one of the shining stars in the locker room when we were going through the whole Jalen Hurd situation. Jalen Hurd was the poster boy of Butch Jones's, tenure here at Tennessee. He was the highest rated player who was going to stay and, being the running back, he was going to be the focal point. Obviously, that fell through this year. And Kamara, especially after his game against Texas A&M, he did get injured, but he stayed a positive force. And there were just a lot of positive reviews that came out from him. So his locker room presence, the question about his off-the-field activity, I think that really got taken care of by the locker room presence that he showed. And not only that, his work ethic on the field. He puts in a lot of effort to be able to make a difference on the field, and it shows on the game tape. Yeah,
I mean, he had absolutely great numbers at Tennessee. And then going into this combine, he's a bigger guy, obviously, at 215 pounds. Ran a 4.56, which was slower than what a lot of people pegged him at, and then had 15 reps at the bench press. It really didn't have that great of a combine. Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what a lot of people were expecting to see from him. With that being said, where do you see him ranking out with the running backs in this class?
I have him number 4 in my rankings. Whenever I look at the running back's ability in the NFL, I look at their running ability. A lot of folks want to sit there and get the uber athlete. A lot of folks want to see passing game, the home run threat, all that different stuff. I look at their ability to run. I've actually got Mixon above Cook in my rankings because I believe in Mixon more as a running back than I do Cook. Cook is a kind of, an all-purpose back. I got Fournette, Mixon, Cook, Kamara, and McCaffrey. And the thing about it is that the reason I have him at number 4, I think that Kamara is going to be a better runner than McCaffrey, for instance. McCaffrey is a very, very hesitant, heady type runner. He a little bit of Le'Veon Bell in his game, but Kamara is someone who consistently goes forward. If you look at his game tape, Kamara reminds you a lot of Cordero Patterson when he's in the open field. The thing about it is that they're consistently moving downfield, and he doesn't do a lot of side-to-side ability to run past people and things like that. He makes small moves in small spaces to get himself space to where he can go. The combine was not that surprising for me. The one thing about Kamara that a lot of people don't realize, he actually had the highest spark score at the combine. He was in the 79th percentile, and it was because of his lower body strength. Hit a 39-inch vertical and nearly an 11-inch broad jump. And the reason why that matters is because it allows for him to be able to have excellent body control. If you talk to any of the scouts, body control is the one thing that really sets Kamara apart. It's his ability to be able to get open in small areas when he catches a pass, and also the ability to hit the hole and immediately juke out to the left or right to be able to get some extra yardage. The long speed was always not there. Whenever you watch the highlight tapes, you sit there and you think to yourself, okay, I'm expecting him to hit this extra gear. He can hit his top gear very quickly, but it's not as top of a gear as you would think. It leaves a lot lacking when you think that he's got the home run talent. And he doesn't have that. He's not a long speed 4-3 guy. But what he wins with is his body control and his lower body power, and it really allows for him to do a lot of production in small spaces, much more than you would think he would do.
Yeah, one of the things I saw with him was he's good at getting to the second and third level. He doesn't always make the best ball carrier decisions once he gets there. It's almost like he wants a little bit more contact than he should be looking for. Like you said, he doesn't have that incredible blow-you-away speed. So I think at the next level, they're going to work with him on doing a little bit more moving around. Just when he gets to that second level, a better job of taking better angles to get away from defenders. Because sometimes it looked like he was actually running towards the defender, like he wanted to go run somebody over, when he should have been taking a little bit better angle and probably get another 5 or 6 yards downfield.
I completely agree with that. Pro comparison that I've seen to Kamara that I really think, you look at combine numbers, you look at running style, is Devontae Freeman. I really think that there are some good, solid comparisons there. And the reason that I say that is that Devontae Freeman's kind of the same way. Devontae Freeman will not shy away from contact. That may lead to a short career, but it also gives him the confidence and the decisiveness of being able to know, I'm going to hit this hole, make the most of it, and go. Kamara's got a similar stance on it. He's not, I'm going to run with my on fire type that Devontae Freeman is. He's much more smoother poetry and motion type. But yeah, Kamara does like to go for that extra yardage. He's going to have to learn how to eventually be smarter and know if he's going to be able to be more productive with an increase in touches that's going to come in the NFL that, everybody hopes he'll get, he's going to have to avoid that contact. And I think that he understands that his game is being able to avoid the big hit in small areas because of how much body control he has. The lateral quickness, the ability to make a quick jab step to the left, go straight up the field and elude tacklers. He's going to have to rely more on that than trying to run people over or hurdle over them like you saw in college at some points.
Sean, were you surprised that the Titans took time to interview Kamara?
Not at all. Not at all. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, to me, are two players that you may not think the Titans need, but I really, really do think that they are great targets for the Titans. One of the biggest reasons why is because of the fact that last year we set everything up on the run. And it was great that we did that. Henry and Murray are great runners. But you did see Murray was very, very successful at being able, especially in the red zone at times, being able to get a little bit of a space open and Mariota would hit him. Mariota is one of the NFL's best, if not the best, at being able to hit a guy in stride while Mariota's on the run 5 to 15 yards downfield. Two of the best weapons in this draft at being able to exploit that in the defense and gain extra yards after it are Kamara and McCaffrey. I really do think that we could get both of those. If we can get one of those guys, if we traded back in the second round, maybe you got them. We could split them out wide, have Murray or Henry in the backfield as well, but we could really utilize that 5 to 10 yard, in flat areas or over the middle. We could really use their athleticism and use Mariota's accuracy to get them the ball in stride to where 15 to 20 yards downfield, they're able to get, a big gain that could really, be a pivotal play in the game. Also, their ability to run to the edge. Murray did a great job of being able to set up his tackles to the edge, but he's more of an in-between-the-tackles runner. Henry obviously is as well. If we could sit there in the early part of the game, get Henry or Murray to be able to use that part of their game to really, really penetrate into the defense, get the box loaded up, you could sit there and use McCaffrey or Kamara on the outside. But no, I was not surprised at all and really think that it would be a smart decision. We need offensive playmakers. We need home run threats. And I do feel that Kamara or McCaffrey would really be someone that could utilize Mariota's skill set to its strength and make a big difference.
All right. Moving on to Cameron Sutton, the cornerback. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. We had the question, do you think he could end up slipping into the third round because of how talented this draft class is? He's a guy that has more starts than probably anybody else coming out of the cornerback position in college. A guy that's played a lot of football. He does have a little bit of an injury history with the ankle, but coming out, he's a guy that's got 4-year starter. It's something that it's going to see a whole lot of in this draft process, especially at cornerback. It seems like this year, a lot of 1-year starters. This guy's had a lot more experience than his peers. How much do you think that experience is going to factor into why teams might take a chance on Sutton earlier than some of the other guys on this list?
To an extent, I think it could play a part. Cameron Sutton is someone that, the thing about it is I also think it can hurt him. His experience, he knows his game. Cameron Sutton is an athlete. He's someone that has the reactionary skills, the quick hips, the ability to be able to play the ball. He played receiver in high school and was very much looked at as us as being a two-way guy, both on offense and defense when he came to school. And obviously his punt return skills show that when he has the ball in his hands, he can do some good things. But that's the thing about it. He plays the position of cornerback as a wide receiver sometimes, and that can really hurt him. He gets overconfident. He only gave up 3 touchdowns, in this past year. But that's the reason why is because a lot of quarterbacks didn't target him. If you look at his interceptions, a lot of them are bad throws. He has excellent reactionary skills, but a lot of times if you really pay close attention to the plays, they actually save him from misreads. The thing about Cameron Sutton that I think does hurt him is that based off all the experience that he has, he really didn't develop his ability to be a physical presence at cornerback, nor his reactionary skills. He's not that good if a receiver gets behind him. He can give up the big play. He's also not any type of presence at all against the run. He's 5'11", 182, but has very, very hard time against press coverage. When you get these 6'2", 6'3" wide receivers in the NFL, they're going to sit there and, if Cameron tries to bump and run them, he's not going to have a lot of success. And teams will run at him because he just does not have a lot of tackle for him at all either. Cameron Sutton to me is a slot corner, and I do think that his experience at cornerback in general will allow for him to be successful there. But in terms of his experience showing teams that he has the ability to be on the outside and be a reliable day one corner, I think it hurt him more than helped him because his weaknesses are going to be exploited a lot more in the NFL than they were in college.
We're just coming off the combine, and Sutton's a guy that didn't have overly impressive numbers. Ran in the I believe the 4.56. Definitely something at his size that I think a lot of NFL teams are going to take note of. Speaking of the 40, we've talked about it a lot. It seems like it's talked about every year. How much do you think it should be factored in when talking about a guy like Cameron Sutton?
It should definitely be factored in. And the reason why that is because if you're going to have a guy who's a lack of a physical presence on the outside, with Cameron Sutton's size, he should be an outside corner. But his skill set makes you think that he's more of a slot guy. On the outside, if the guy's going to get beat because he's out-physical by the receiver, he better have the closing speed to be able to make up for it. Cameron Sutton isn't that fast. What helped him out a lot in college was the ability to react to the ball, to be able to high point the ball before it got thrown on him, so on and so forth. Also, he's not that good at rotating his hips. He does it quickly. He just does it too late. So the fact that his reactionary skills are not elite, in my opinion, based off what I've seen, plus the fact that he doesn't have a lot of long speed, he would be susceptible to the deep ball, especially with the fact that he's more of a man corner. He's not that adept to the zone-type defenses that a lot of NFL teams set up. So the ability for him to be able to stay with his man, that's going to leave the short option open. And then also the fact that he's not going to be able to keep up with a lot of NFL receivers, that's going to make it to where he's susceptible to the deep ball. That's why I think that you put his ability to, even though his decision-making isn't good, his fast reflexes and his length, I really could think make a difference in the slot. A lot of times you see those slot corners, they're 5'8", 5'9". Cameron's almost 6 foot tall, and he has that ability to be able to stick with the receiver in those 5 to 10 yard crossing routes, small slants, whatever it may be. So I do think that the length of his arms and the ability for him to be able to make plays on the ball, kind of like a receiver would, it's going to be a lot more successful in the slot than I think on the outside.
Yeah, like you said, it's the long speed. It's going to be his shortfall. I think it's funny that for some reason every year they're always talking about the size of guys' hands. Sims has small hands. Sharp has small hands. These guys can play football with small hands. I don't get what the big deal is about their hands. The NFL comparison I saw for him was B.W. Webb, which is not exciting. It definitely screams nickelback slot. What changes do you think he can honestly make about his, not just his physique, where he's going to have to get a little bit stronger, I think, in the NFL? What else do you think he can honestly expect to be able to change to ever be a real starter in the NFL? Or is he always going to be nickel guy, possibly just, the fourth guy on your depth chart?
I don't know if he has that capability. That's why I was that's what I was meaning when I said, his experience in his case may have actually hurt more than helped him. The physique, if he wasn't able to add it at Tennessee, then I don't know if he's ever going to be able to add it to where it's going to make a difference. Also, the fact, a lot of things that you want your cornerback to learn, a lot of those small things that NFL teams want you to learn is something that he didn't do. Cameron Sutton made a lot of good plays because he was a good athlete. He was a receiver type athlete. I keep saying receiver. Reason why is because he plays the ball like a receiver when he's a cornerback. That's hard to be able to have as a success in the NFL on the outside, because you got to be expected to stop the run. You got to be expected to throw a receiver off his routes, and it's just not Cameron Sutton's game. His ability is to stay with the receiver over a short distance, and from there, when the ball is tried to be delivered, he can make plays on the ball right then and there. His ball skills are actually very good. So to be on the outside and for him to be expected to try to play the run, for him to expected to try to be a bump and run type guy who can throw receivers off his routes, I just don't think it's going to be his game. He's really going to make a difference, I feel, in the slot, in the nickel defense. You got a lot of NFL defenses now that are going more towards a 2 linebacker, 5 DB type setup. I think in that type of defense he actually could excel. And I think that he's also going to make a big presence on special teams. He has the ability to be able to tackle when defending someone on the punt, and he's going to make a good punt returner. Cameron Sutton, if you watch him on his punt returns, has excellent ball vision to be able to set up his blocks and go long distances by making smart angles when he's trying to outrun the coverage. So I think that he's going to be more of a depth guy in the NFL than, a starter that a lot of people like. He may eventually be a number 2 starter, but I see him being more of a guy that people talk about due to his slot cover skills than being an outside guy.
With that being said, where do you think we'll see Sutton go in the draft?
I really do think that Sutton's probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. I'll guess 4th, just with as many of these 1-year guys, and especially the fact that, you saw like Marshawn Lattimore. I know Tyler was talking about him last time. The guy's an absolute stud in the combine. The tape shows it as well. I just think that what hurt Cameron more than anything is that a lot of these programs, Washington, Alabama, Florida, all these different programs to where you don't have the 4-year starters. You more have every year somebody step up who's probably more talented than Sutton. They were just playing depth to a more talented guy before them. I really do think that depth is going to hurt Sutton in this draft. I think that people are going to go after him in the 4th round for his special teams presence and the ability for him to be quality depth as a cornerback, and I do think that's a good projection for him. If the Titans were to sit there and try to get him in the 4th round, that'd be great. We could take care of 2 things, in one pick, decent to quality depth at the cornerback position and also a punt returner. But just in general, Cameron Sutton is not a guy that excites me because he's very limited on his capabilities beyond being able to cover the slot.
All right, we're going to move on to Jalen Reeves-Maben here, 6 foot 230, playing outside linebacker. Not a very big guy playing at outside linebacker. A lot of people have already expressed their concerns for him to be able to stay healthy and be able to contribute on an NFL team at the size that he is right now. Is that something that you would say is a legitimate worry?
It very much is. It was sad to see it. I was at the Florida game this year, and my fiance was made a great move. She surprised me with my first tickets to a Tennessee Florida game this year, and that was the game that he tried to play that he just came off the field and his shoulder just was dipped, and it really took the air out of the crowd in the first half, and it definitely is a concern. And one of the biggest reasons why it's a concern is because for a guy who is considered small for his position, yes, he has such good athletic ability, and he's so smart with his athletic ability. It's his tackle form. His tackle form isn't, the most perfect tackle form that's out there. He launches into people, and it makes a big difference. Against Appalachian State, for instance, he got ejected for crowning the guy, and it was because he leads with his head, and that's what killed him with his shoulder. Is that he just took so many straightforward, blunt shots at the tailbacks and at the wide receivers that he takes a lot of the brunt of the hit, even more so than the offensive guy because he's so small. So with his tackle form and his all-out playing style, I just don't think that his body is going to be sustainable. If you look at his body makeup, it looks like that he's pretty much maxed out at where he is. And he even lost, some strength trying to get healthy. He's a great athlete, but I think that his size is really going to be a detriment. You've got smaller linebackers in the NFL. Telvin Smith is a guy that, I keep wanting to think, Jalen Reeves-Maybin can eventually become. But I just think that Jalen Reeves-Maybin, he's going to get picked. I don't think he's going to go undrafted. I think he's going to have to make his presence felt on special teams first. But, yes, his size and his playing style definitely make it to where I don't think it's going to be a long NFL career for him. I think injuries are definitely going to be his downfall.
Where do you think you see Reeves-Maybin going in this draft?
I think that Reeves-Maybin is probably your 5th or 6th round pick. And the reason why I say that more than anything is because he is a guy that you're going to put that injury bug on, even though it wasn't something that, really, hurt him, throughout his whole entire career. It knocked him out for 2 seasons, really. I mean, it was a concern, in 2015 and 16. It was a concern last year, obviously, when it knocked him out for the year. He's someone that's going to have to rise himself up. Someone's going to take a chance on him, and he could be a steal. I think that he's going to make his presence known on special teams, though. The thing about Reeves-Maybin is he is so smart with his recognition skills. I mean, when you see a ball carrier go through the line the first time, someone like a Kamara or a running back, being able to get through the line and dish it, you can jive and get to the second or third level. Maybin it's almost like he's doing that on the opposite end. His ability to weave through and shed off blockers to get to the ball carrier is amazing. His ability out in the flat to cut off the running angles. There were so many plays that we missed him on that I remember from 2015 where when there was a ball carrier where it seemed like the ball carrier was going to get, 5 to 10 yards, on an edge sweep or whatever it may be, Reeves-Maybin would come out of nowhere and be able to launch into him and create a loss or create a 2-yard gain. So his skill sets, he has the skill set to make up for his lack of size. And eventually, if he can sit there and get himself, understood on how he needs to tackle to where he has the ability to use his body correctly and not have to put so much force on his body that, increases the injury risk, I do think that he eventually could be a backup linebacker and could start for a few years. But I think he's a 5th or 6th round pick who's going to have to make a difference on the special teams. I think he is a Pro Bowler as a special teams producer, but he's going to have to start there, prove that he's healthy, prove that he can stay has the longevity to produce on a consistent basis. He could work himself up to a starter, but, a lot of injury risk really hurts his draft stock.
All right, we're going to talk real quick about Josh Malone, who was Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee coming out of high school. Had a good short career with the Vols and, now heading to the NFL. He's a guy that a lot of people that I know in Tennessee are saying is being overlooked and not getting his due. He had a good combine. From what I've seen of him, I thought he performed pretty well. What do you think? Do you think this is a guy that's being overlooked?
I definitely do. And the reason why more than anything is because the one thing that he possesses is what a lot of NFL teams want on a consistent basis, and that's deep playability. When you look at Josh Malone is a very surprising athlete. When you look at the game tape of Josh Malone, there are so many plays in which he's able to get behind the cornerback that's guarding him. It's amazing just how well he is, just how wide open he is in a lot of these deep plays. Throw out a couple of things to you. I mean, the guy averaged 20 yards a catch, with Josh Dobbs as his quarterback. There were so many plays last year in which it was a horrible throw by Dobbs, and Malone was able to adjust and make the catch, over the cornerback, around the cornerback. And also the fact that Josh Malone caught 11 touchdown passes last year. He averaged 41 yards on his 11 touchdown catches. And this ability isn't from Dobbs being able to throw the ball. More than half of those throws were very inaccurate throws that either Malone had to adjust on to be able to catch over the cornerback, or he had to take to the house because it was behind him, or, it was something where he had to create on the run. He is very, very good at being able to get past the initial coverage that is on him. He uses a hesitation move to where basically as the cornerback plants his foot, that's when Malone goes. The 4.4 speed shows that he is a very good athlete. He plays smaller than he actually is. His ability with straight speed to be able to cut and juke to get open is very, very good after that hesitation move. So he can catch balls on all levels of the field. But the great thing about Malone is when you watch his game, you think he's some 6 foot, 200-pound wide receiver. The man is 6'3", 210 pounds. So he can help you out on all levels, whether it be the short routes, the intermediate routes, or obviously the deep balls. I really do think that Josh Malone is Torrey Smith type receiver, almost to an extent, with a little bit better run routing ability. But he's someone that could definitely have a few seasons as a number 2 wide receiver where he had just double-digit touchdown passes and could really make a difference for someone to turn into a contender with his ability to stretch the defense, but also contribute in all facets of the passing game.
And what do you think we'll see Malone go when his name's called?
I think late second to early third. I really do think that he opened some eyes at the combine. Something that limits him is that, while I say that he plays smaller than you would actually think, that also is kind of a weakness. He's not that strong, and I do think that he could be press covered. And against the better talents, the Texas A&Ms, the Alabamas, he kind of disappeared. He had good games. He had 5 catches, 4 catches here, but didn't have touchdown passes and things like that. I think in good defense, and I think, when people recognize him and they put someone on there that can press him at the line, it's going to be hard for him to get off the line. But I do really think he's someone that can make a difference. If he gets in the right offensive scheme, especially with the quarterback whose arm can stretch the field, for instance, somebody like, a Matt Stafford or a Joe Flacco, I do think that is a definite benefit to them. And I really think that he can make a difference. As far as the Titans go, with our 2 third-round picks, I would focus on him. I think he's an underrated guy that could really help Mariota out by stretching the defense. Mariota, I believe, was the most improved deep ball passer, and of course, most of it, went to Rashad. But with Malone on the outside, being able to stretch that defense, and that can open up the short passing game for Delaney. It can open up some more running lanes for Derek and DeMarco. I think that Malone is a guy that a lot of teams are going to focus on as that number 2 receiver that really can stretch the field and bring a whole new element to the game.
All right, now we're going to talk about the guy that has been making a lot of waves the last couple of days in the Combine. Josh Dobbs, the quarterback coming out of Tennessee, had a very excellent workout. I watched all of his workout, actually, in the Combine. Was making every throw where it needed to be. Really looked impressive. I think he turned a lot of heads in this draft. Before, a lot of people had him rated rather low. It really isn't that strong of a quarterback class. For as deep as a class it is, it seems like the one weakness. So where do you right now think that Dobbs deserves to be ranked among these quarterbacks?
Bottom half of the top 10. I am a fan of Josh Dobbs. He's gotten a lot of unfair scrutiny during his time, being Butch Jones' quarterback. And he has everything that you want. He's the type of guy that you draft for his off-the-field acumen just as much as his on the field. I mean, the man is intelligent. Aerospace engineering was his major. I mean, he's going to make a lot of money regardless if it's NFL or off the field. But the thing is that for an athlete, I think that he compares to anyone in this class when it comes to running. The guy took over games with his running ability. I do think also that physically he's bigger than a lot of people think. Needs to add some muscle. He's still lean and awkward at times. But I do not have a lot of faith in Dobbs' ability to throw. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that one thing that really, really hurt Tennessee, even though we had Hurd and Kamara, is that teams would eventually figure out that if you made Dobbs consistently have to make throws 10 to 15 yards down the field, he was not going to be able to do it. He threw the ball 104 times last year, 10 yards or more downfield. 9 of those were intercepted. And if it weren't for the play of Jennings and Malone and a lot of other throws, that easily could have been 15. That's my concern with Dobbs. It's his indecisiveness when it comes to being able to make throws. A lot of that comes from footwork. Whether it be throwing the ball, you wouldn't think it would be an issue with him with as athletic as he is, but whether it be throwing the ball or whether it be setting his feet to try to pass downfield, he can get some velocity behind his throws, but the accuracy of it is just not there. I do not have a lot of faith in Dobbs' arm talent. Everything else I love. I just don't have a lot of faith in his arm talent, and I do believe that's his downfall, and I think that's why he's in the bottom half of my top 10 and why I think he may be a backup at best in the NFL.
Speaking, talking about this draft class and Josh Dobbs, he did perform really well. And like as you said, you think he's backup level talent. Where do you see the guys at the top of this list? Do you think there's anybody in this list that's going to be a true top 10 quarterback in the league one day?
It's hard. It's hard to tell because there's a lot missing to trust. Either you have a guy like Dobbs who's a 4-year starter, 3.5-year starter who just remained inconsistent and just is so frustrating. You have a guy like Deshaun Kaiser who to me is the most physically gifted quarterback. He has the most things you can't teach of any quarterback prospect in this draft. You got Mitch Trubisky. He seems to be the most technically sound guy in terms of his ability to throw and things such as that, but he's a one-year starter. Why was he not able to beat the guy before him in the first 2 years that he was there? I think that is a big question mark. And then, of course, you got Deshaun Watson. I think Watson, to me, has the best makeup. I think that the team that picks him is going to be very happy, and I think that he could have an NFL career. He's a winning quarterback. But he also doesn't have as much arm talent as Jameis and still have the interception bug. So in my opinion, no. I do not think that there is a good chance that any quarterback in this draft class will be a top 10 quarterback eventually. I think you do have some folks in a Watson or a Kaiser, a Trubisky, who I do think could not necessarily be game managers. They may be able to win a game or two on their end, but I don't think that you're going to get a consistent enough performer out of this draft class for you to look back and say, wow, we really got it wrong with this guy. One guy that I do think could make a big wave, because I think that he has a lot of physical skills and he does have a cannon of an arm, is Pat Mahomes out of Texas Tech. I do think that he is someone that you could watch out for. A lot of folks don't like him because he operates out of structure and he may not be the most coachable guy based off his playing style, but we know that that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, there have been a lot of quarterbacks in the past who have eventually become very good quarterbacks due to simply having arm talent. But if I had to put my money on someone, my rankings, I have Kaiser first. I love Kaiser's physical makeup. If he could ever get the mental aspect of it to where he can know for sure when to release the ball to make it accurate, I really do think that he could be a top 10 quarterback. But I've got in my rankings, I have Kaiser, I have Watson, I have Trubisky, and then I have Mahomes. That's my opinion of the quarterback rankings. But if I had to make a guarantee that any one of them would eventually be a top 10 quarterback, I would be more willing to bet against that than I would to bet for it.
I'm in pretty much the same opinion of that group. This is not a great year for quarterback, which is why so many defensive players are dominating the top of it. It's why pass rusher becomes so much more important, because you're not going to get that game changer of quarterback. And there could definitely be a guy or two in here that you could win a Super Bowl with, as long as he wasn't the reason why you were winning it. But I think Deshaun Watson, like you said, is probably your best bet of all-around ability, and without as much of the downside. But every guy on that list has got a really good aspect and a really big question. Can he do this? Can he do that? Why wasn't he able to do this or that? So I have more doubt about this quarterback class than I even did the one last year, and I didn't like that one either. I think the Titans got in on that last couple of really good quarterbacks for a while, and I don't know when we're going to see another couple of quarterbacks come out like you did, when we took Mariota. So, it's a good year for Cleveland to have that first draft pick, and it helps us that, teams are still trying to search and find that special quarterback whenever we've got ours.
And agreed completely. I mean, if you want to know the quarterback that was creating the most buzz, it was Sam Darnold, who's going to come out next year at USC. That tells you right there just where the quarterback class is this year. But, if we're talking about Dobbs, if I had to compare someone to Dobbs, I think Dobbs, if he accepts who he is and works hard at his craft, I think, for instance, you can have a lot of good backup quarterbacks out of this. I mean, heck, talking about a Tennessee guy, Nathan Peterman out of Pittsburgh, he beat Clemson and beat Penn State this year. He's projected to be a second-round quarterback. I can tell you from watching the guy at Tennessee, I didn't think this guy was going to be anywhere close to sniffing the combine 2 years ago. I think that it speaks more to the lack of talent in this QB class, the lack of certainty that he's ranked that high. But that just goes to show, everybody's trying to find the next Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was a great talent in college. Nobody thought that he was going to have this quick. They thought that his learning curve was going to be something that was going to take 3 or 4 years. Dak got the fundamentals down. He made good throws, limited mistakes, had very good decision-making. I don't see there being a lot of good decision-making out of this quarterback class. So many of them have questions about their decision-making, and that's what leads me back to Dobbs. As smart as he is, there was always just something missing. He would sit there and lead us on a drive and just do excellent, and then the next drive just makes a very, very poor throw. The South Carolina game, the Georgia game where he threw the interception, on their end of the field. There were just so many frustrating plays. I think that if Dobbs reaches his max, I can see him having a Seneca Wallace type career, a guy that still is going to make a difference with his athleticism. He could probably win you a game or two a year if your starter gets injured based on his athleticism alone. But I don't ever think that he's going to be in a position to where he'll lead a franchise to success.
All right, you talked about, Dobbs being ranked in the second half of the top 10 of this quarterback list. What do you think that has him drafted then?
I do think that Dobbs gets drafted. I think that he's going to be a sixth-round pick. I think that he will be in the range of where we drafted Mettenberger a few years ago. And I do think that the reason why a lot of teams are going to draft him is because of the fact of his locker room presence. You want a guy who's dedicated. You want a guy who's smart. You want a guy who legitimately can make a difference on the sideline with his IQ. You're going to get that in Dobbs. And he's a project to work with. He's got a lot of intriguing things about him. And something may light up in his mind from the right coaching technique, and he may surprise people. I've seen a few places where they said that they think that he could be the Dak Prescott of this year. I don't see it. I don't think that he has that type of physical ability throwing the ball. But I do think that he gets drafted simply based off the value that he can bring, not only as a potential project, but also what he can bring off the field. You're not going to find a better young man in terms of the type of person that he is, the type of dedication that he has to his craft, and also the effort that he's going to give to get better. And I do think that a lot of teams will find value in that once they interview him. So I think he's a sixth to seventh round pick this year.
All right, I think that's all we have. Thanks a lot for coming on, Sean. Glad to have you on here. You provided us a lot of insight into this draft class coming out of Tennessee.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you again. It was a pleasure having you on.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Sean. You too.
Another big thanks to Sean Coleman for coming on the show with us. Provided a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge to some of these players coming out of the draft for the Tennessee Volunteers. That's all we have for the show this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks to Sean again. Thanks to my awesome co-hosts, Matt and Glenn. Again, we say it every week. Check out Hang 10. That's hangtn.com. Best Titans apparel that money can buy. I promise you that. They've sent me and Glenn and Matt some great stuff, some really cool stuff. And I swear by them. All their stuff, really high-quality stuff, really cool design, stuff that you can't find anywhere else. But that's all we have for this week. We'll be back next week with some more stuff leading into this draft, which I know you're all excited for. I'm excited for. I know Matt and Glenn are excited for. Thanks again for listening to the show. And as always, tighten up.
Tighten up.
Podbean.
Thanks for listening to the Two-Tone Uncensored podcast. You can listen to the show at twotoneuncensored.podbean.com or by downloading the Podbean app on your mobile device. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Two-Tone Uncensored and like us on Facebook.